Hey, welcome back. So as we wrap up this course, we're going to bring this thing full circle and show how you can use this strategy map coupled with your roadmap to create alignment and challenge assumptions, which is super important in the world of product management. Okay, so let's break this down real quick. First, your goal. So we're going back to the strategy map and the template that I gave you in that Word doc, right? When you go to your stakeholders, when you go to your executives, when you talk to your boss, and when you talk with your team, you need to understand that the goal that you're trying to accomplish ladders up the chain, right? Because if you're trying to accomplish goals that don't help the business accomplish its goals, you're misaligned, right? There should be that cohesion. There not always is, but in my opinion, there always should be that cohesion. Unless for some reason there needs to be goals accomplished that don't help the overall big picture goal. Don't know what those situations are, but I'm not going to assume that those don't exist. But with that said, typically you're trying to accomplish something at a higher level, right? And so you talk to your stakeholders, you talk to your customers, you talk to your team, you gather all these inputs, you synthesize them, and you say, okay, based on the feedback that I have, here's the goal that we're trying to accomplish. And you go back to your stakeholders, you go back to your boss, and you say, from all the conversations we've had, here's the goal that we're trying to accomplish. Am I wrong? and then get their feedback, right? See if you're on the same page. Where this gets interesting is cross-functionally. Every senior stakeholder might have a different goal that they're trying to hit that also ladders back up to the overall business goal. And so when you're having these conversations with marketing, your head of customer success, whoever it may be, right? The CTO, if you know what their goals are, if they're different, right? Then you could use this and create multiple templates and say, okay, let me repeat back to you. This is the goal that you're trying to accomplish, right? Because at the end of the day, you're going to have to articulate and speak their language in a way that shows that the thing that you're doing as a PM is going to help them accomplish their goals. There may be times where the things that you do don't directly connect to accomplishing their goals, but the closer that you can map the work that you do to show how you're helping them get to where they need to go and how that ladders back up, the more successful you'll be in collaborating across functions or with your cross-functional partners. So if you're in a political organization or a siloed organization, create multiple templates with the goal for each stakeholder you're talking to, and share the template that maps to the stakeholder you're talking to. But hopefully you're working in a not siloed, not political organization where the goal should be the same, right? The one thing we're trying to accomplish this year, this month, this quarter. And then from there, get crystal clear on the challenge, right? And this is where it's really interesting, because like the challenge outside of the goal is the most important thing to align around, right? Because everything else after it gets anchored to this challenge. And so once you've taken all this information, really the art of product is to identify and really precisely define the challenge we're trying to solve, right? That's part of the art of this. And so this is where it's going to take a level of influence and an ability to really share how you came to this conclusion, right? This isn't something that you should take as like an order taker from any stakeholder, right? Coming in, if you're brand new, you might not have the context to understand the challenge. You might have to lean on some of that contextual knowledge that leaders have, that your boss has. But if you've been there for a little while, you can kind of weed through kind of like the feature request thing from the customers, the feedback you're getting from stakeholders saying, oh no, this is the challenge, this is the real thing, when that may not be the real thing. That's why it's important to get holistic inputs and feedback. So that way you can take all those feedbacks, just like in the customer's world, right? Understanding what is their biggest challenge to progress. You need to take those two things and marry them. What is the customer's biggest challenge towards progress? And what is your business's biggest challenge towards progress towards that stated goal? Okay. And once you can synthesize that information, put it here, I would encourage you to go bring that back in front of your stakeholders. And if they challenge your challenge that you've listed, just explain how you got there, right? It's not easy to be a product manager, like I've said before, and not everyone's going to agree all the time, and that's okay. What's important is that at the end of the day, they understand what you understand, and vice versa, right? And you may not get consensus, but you could still get buy-in, right? So going down to guiding policy, this is really, really important, especially as you start executing on the strategy. Okay. So once you've gotten over the hurdle of what is our goal, what is our challenge, the challenge is probably a little more tricky to align around, as we've stated. But once you have, the guiding policy is the thing that's going to save you a lot of stress and headache because it creates focus, right? And so anytime your stakeholders come back to you and say, oh, what about this thing? Or what about that thing? Or, hey, shouldn't we be doing this? You can go back to the guiding policy and say, that's a great idea. We could probably put that in the backlog and go explore that later. But based on the guiding policy that we've set here, we are constrained by the focus of what we're trying to accomplish, right? So having this up front of saying, this is how we're going to constrain our focus, and putting it out there before you get into the thick of things, of saying, this is how we're going to focus our time and effort, because this is the constraint that we see that if we put it around ourselves, we're more likely to overcome that challenge, to hit our goal. And once that's understood, you can always come back to it as that thing that you anchor to whenever those interesting conversations happen around, well, we should pivot and do this, or, oh no, this is higher priority because of, recency bias of the customer came and complained about this, or we have this new big client we're trying to win and we need this thing. It's like, well, at the expense of what, right? And then coherent actions. So this really, again, goes to your roadmap, as we've said before. So once they know what your focus is and the constraints you've created and the actions you're going to take within those constraints, then it's like, okay, you want us to pivot and do this thing so you can win this big customer. Which one of these things are we going to remove? And that's going to be really hard for them to answer, because you've already ahead of time said, here are the things that we're going to do within this focused window to overcome the challenge. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, you know what, you're right. It's not as important. We need to accomplish these things. And we can't risk not doing one of these things, because not doing one of these things means we probably won't overcome our challenge. And they will concede to let you put that idea in the backlog, right? Not all the time, but that's typically how it plays out. So it's very helpful to have this structure for that reason. And then the expected outcomes, right? Accountability is not a bad thing. It's actually a really good thing. And so if everyone knows what you're trying to get at, right? If everybody knows what your goals are and what the expected outcomes are, the company as a whole, being aligned to this strategy, is much more likely to rally to that thing, right? And help you in accomplishing that thing, because now you've created focus for more than just you and your product team. You've created focus for the marketing team, customer success team, your dev team, your UX team, and whoever else is at play, finance, legal, right? And so they know what's coming. They know how they need to help you because they're experts in their domain, and everybody knows the outcomes they're driving towards. And they'll probably be able to bring some innovative ideas to the table within their field of expertise that can help you in your efforts too. So I hope this was helpful in kind of recapping how all this plays together again, and how you can use it to have those hard conversations up front, and challenge those assumptions, right? And that's the reason why you go back to the stakeholders, to your boss, and have those internal conversations, because you might you might have those initial conversations, say, here's what our goal is, here's our challenge, here's our guiding policy, our coherent actions, and the expected outcomes. And then you go to your product team and you say, here's all these things, it's great, let's go. And then you're having a conversation later and you're like, oh, but wait, if we pivot away from this thing, what are we going to take away from our actions? And like, wait, what are you talking about? And you're like, well, here's the challenge we're trying to overcome. And you're like, that's not our biggest challenge. And you're already 3 months down the road after you've created this strategy, and then everything like comes undone because you assumed what the biggest challenge was, and you didn't go back to not get consensus, but you didn't go back to get buy-in around what that challenge was, or challenge your assumptions, especially if you're new. You might be working under some faulty assumptions. So again, hope that's helpful. And as we wrap up here, if you have any feedback, please let me know. It's john@pathtoproduct.io. And if you take this and use this within your own company, I would love to hear the results of it, right? As a product manager myself, I'm always trying to make this better. I'm always trying to make my practice better, and feedback is necessary for that. So I would really love your feedback. And if you have some successes, I'd really love to hear your success stories. I've already had several come in from folks that I've coached one-on-one, but I'd love to hear what comes out of you using this in your day-to-day. Thank you.